If you were there when they signed the Constitution, pages 40 to 48. Who did both sides admire? George Washington, of course. Many of the people had come to Philadelphia because they knew George Washington would be there. The delegates had to elect a chairman. Everyone knew it would be Washington. Ben Franklin wanted to nominate Washington, but it was raining again, and Franklin was too sick to leave his house that day. Every single delegate voted for George Washington as chairman. Washington walked up to a low platform where he sat facing the other delegates. He sat on a graceful open-backed chair, not at all like a throne, but on its back was a carved and gilded sun, cut off at the horizon. Was it rising or setting sun? Nobody could tell. After Washington took his seat, James Madison did something for which all historians have been grateful. I chose a seat in front, he wrote, so that he could hear and write down all that happened that day and what was said. I was not absent a single day, said Madison, nor more than a fraction of an hour in any day. Sometimes the speeches would go on for hours, but at the end of each day, Madison went back to the Indian Queen Inn and wrote out his daily notes with a quill pen. Madison would not allow his notes to be published until the last delegate died. Guess who it was? It turned out to be James Madison himself, who died in 1836. What two rules helped make the convention a success? First, the delegates decided to keep everything they said secret. This meant that people could say things that they might not want reported back home. The delegates were serious about keeping things secret. They put guards at the windows. They even nailed the windows shut. It would turn out to be the hottest summer in years. This was before air conditioning or even electric fans. You can imagine how hot it got. Second, they allowed the delegates to change their minds. Even if a vote had been taken on an issue, someone could bring it up again. Whenever the delegates argued so much that they were afraid they'd split up, they could take a vote, then go on to something else, knowing that they could come back to the problem. If you and your classmates were making up a new game and you got into a huge argument about the rules, how would you keep one group from walking out? You'd need to find the rules, as the delegates did. That would keep people talking until a compromise could be found. We will find out about all sorts of compromises in our Constitution. What is a compromise? A compromise settles an argument because each side gives up some of its demands. Suppose every week you want to watch one TV show, and your sister wants to watch another. You could have a fight every week, or you could watch your show one week and her show the next. Sometimes it's hard to compromise. What was the first big argument about? James Madison's plan was presented first, and the little states hated it. The Virginia plan did away with the one state, one vote rule. The Virginia plan called for 2 branches or houses of Congress. The first house would be based on the number of people in each state. The members of that house would elect members of the other, smaller house. The small states were shocked. They weren't dumb. They saw that the big states would have more power in each house of the new Congress. They didn't want that. For a while, it looked like the convention might split up. Gunning Bedford from Delaware said, "I do not, gentlemen, trust you. Will you crush the small states?" Then the small states presented their own plan. What was the small states plan? William Patterson of New Jersey put on his own plan that called for a Congress with just one house that would be based on the old system where each state would be equal. For nearly 7 weeks, as the weather got hotter and hotter and the windows remained nailed shut, the delegates fought, sometimes voting this way, sometimes voting the other. Luther Martin got up to speak for New Jersey plan. He talked on and on, driving the delegates crazy. It might have gone on for 2 months had not the convention showed its boredom, wrote one of the delegates. Finally, the delegates decided to give the whole problem to a committee to try to come up with a compromise. What was the Great Compromise? We have lived for 200 years under the compromise the delegates worked out. It seems natural to us. Can you guess what it is? Roger Sherman suggested it weeks before it was accepted on July 16th. It seemed simple. Congress would have 2 houses, just like James Madison wanted. Only one house would be based on population, and in the other house, each state would be equal, and that's how it has been ever since. Our House of Representatives is based on population, and members are elected every 2 years. In our Senate, all states are equal. Every state has 2 votes. Tiny Delaware is equal to California. Senators are elected every 6 years. Together, the House of Representatives and the Senate make up Congress. It took the delegates nearly 2 months to hammer out this compromise, and when they did, they faced another, even bigger problem. This is the end of today's lesson.